Welcome to The Call to Rise, the podcast for sacred rebels, visionaries, and conscious changemakers. Here we sit down with the people birthing the new earth, weaving ancient wisdom with modern strategy to build movements that heal, transform, and uplift our world. I'm Mackenzie Darling, your host, inviting you into honest conversations, practical tools, and hard-won wisdom to awaken your power and to inspire you to answer the call to rise and to meet this moment in history. Today we have Bruce Cryer in the house. He is an author, executive, and former Broadway performer known for his work in stress management, resilience, and personal development. He is a co-founder and former CEO of the HeartMath Institute, a research organization focused on the link between the heart and the brain. He is now the creator of the Vibrato Method, which allows us to develop heart coherence, perception, and social connection in fostering well-being amidst uncertainty. Hi, Bruce. Welcome. And thank you so much for being on the podcast.
It's fun for me too, Mackenzie. It's great to see you again.
Yay, it's great to see you too. I want to jump right into it and would love to ask the first question of, you led HeartMath as a CEO during its rise as a global movement. And I'd love to just hear what drew you to heart intelligence in the first place, and how did it change the way that you saw leadership?
Well, the concept of heart intelligence, just even the term, was sort of intriguing. Although when I first was getting exposed to what HeartMath might become, we were not using that term quite yet. We really picked up that term from an amazing man named Joseph Chilton Pearce, he's the first author I'm aware of that was using that in regards to children and how there's this natural intelligence of the heart that children clearly have. And we thought we loved that concept, and we wanted to let's prove that there is actual intelligence, not just it's a nice metaphor for what kids are like or something. So, but I just intuitively liked the feeling of it, I think, and not just the feeling, but I think when you look at history and all the qualities that were assigned to the heart through the spiritual traditions, courage, wisdom, the heart is revered in Egyptian burial process. You pick a religion, pick up a spiritual tradition, and there's a reverence for the heart as not just a source of emotion, but a source of a way of thinking. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. There was an assumption the heart was part of the thinking. I learned many years ago that in the Chinese language, the original pictogram for the concept of think was an image of a heart connected to a brain.
Interesting.
And so thousands of years ago, the ancient Chinese believed to think required a heart and a brain. So there were all these little, interesting. So I found that quite interesting. And I think also from the standpoint of leadership, the second part of your question, the word heart is tough for most leaders, right? Unless it's in a purely medical context.
Right.
Heart intelligence is still a stretch. Let's face it, it's still a stretch. For a lot of leaders is going, here we go. You're from California, right?
I know. I get that a lot too.
Yes, guilty as charged. But I think when you can look at the science, and this is what I'm especially proud of with what HeartMath built over the decades, now 35 years since it started, the foundation of very credible, very well evidenced scientific research showing there are actual intelligent structures in the heart. This is a fact. HeartMath didn't even uncover that. Back in the mid-90s, it was discovered that there's this complex neuronal structure called the intrinsic nervous system of the heart. An intrinsic nervous system has neurons that perform functions like a brain. And so it was realized that this nervous system of tens of thousands of neurons, who knew we had neurons in our heart? Don't you think of neurons, those only exist up there? Not actually. There's tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands down in the heart. There's hundreds of millions in the gut. So neurons they're not only resident up here. But when that was discovered, and then when it was recognized that local processing of information is happening for the heart within the heart, and then that information is somehow transmitted to the brain and other parts of the body. But it's kind of like, okay, this is not a long shot at all to be thinking of the heart as intelligent.
Where do you think that we went wrong, Bruce? Why did we, especially in the Western world, we've really dropped out of our heart and more into our head? Why is the head so revered in our culture?
Oh boy, I think there's so many reasons, but from a science, and I don't want to pin it all on science, but there's something happened back in the days of the age of reason and the Cartesian models, and where science became fascinated with machines, and the industrial age was happening. Machines were taking over. There was a machine that could actually drive a car. I mean, a machine that could fly in the air. Machines became, it could produce newspapers, all kinds of things. And so the fascination became with engineering and machines. And so there was a point about 150 years ago when the comment was made, the heart is a fantastical machine.
Wow.
And it's a fantastical pump. And so there was a kind of how magical this machine is, but it was seen as a machine still. Mm-hmm. And so there was this kind of thinking that took over. But who was also promoting that? Well, there was a whole profit motive behind that, because why were they in the machines all of a sudden? You could get a ton more work done without paying people. So there was a profit motive for the fascination with machines. I can build a machine and become a millionaire. Oh my God. So there was that part of it too, that was kind of saying machines are amazing. We need to have more machines. Let's build more machines. And of course, who was saying that? The people that were going to build them and make tons of money, and became the oligarchs of their day. So I think there was a lot of reasons, not a single one, but I think for various reasons in the West, to your point, because it was not so that much the same everywhere necessarily. There was this view the heart's basically just a pump. And so all those sweet things we say about the heart, poets can say that, singers can say that, romantics can feel that. And yes, I guess a pastor, a priest, I guess they can say that. That's okay. But let's get serious. The heart's a pump. And so that thinking kind of took over, but not completely, because a lot of people are saying, no, it's not. No, it's not. I feel love with my heart. I don't feel it up there. I'm sorry. You can tell me all the parts of my brain where supposedly all the neurochemicals are happening. I don't feel it there. I feel it here. Sorry. So people's own experience kind of was running up against the view, which is that the brain is the ultimate machine guiding everything in our possible psyche. And I found another thing I noticed too, because of having been around a little longer than you, like twice as long, back when computing was just becoming a thing at all in companies, it was a single computer in the basement. Then up on the desks were little terminals that only could access parts of a computer. The terminals were not smart. They were just a screen of information that was being accessed from the basement. The brain in the basement commanding all these little terminals on the desks, the parts of our body. And that's how we viewed the body too, right? A master computer telling the rest of the body what to do. Gradually computing changed, and now you have, as we all know, more computing power in that size thing than in the basement computer of 50 years ago. But this is aggregating information from all kinds of places. It's not just the information that exists inside itself. So this is a distributed network. So gradually, I think people start to realize there's neurons in the heart. There's a brain in the gut. There's intelligence in the skin. There's memory stored throughout the body, not just in the classical areas of the brain we think of where memories are stored. So intelligence is not limited to the brain. Processing of information is not limited to the brain. Anybody with any kind of spiritual practices knows that. We got to get out of the brain, or quiet the brain the frick down, in order to hear the promptings of our heart, our soul, of spirit. Anyway, I can talk about those kind of themes, but it's fun to watch, because I've lived through all of those phases, not when it was just machines. But yeah, I think those are some of the themes of why it's changed.
Yeah, thank you. I could speak with you or listen to you for hours about this. And I think it's interesting that HeartMath really started off as a tech company, a wearable company, a scientific company that had the heart at its mission. And so I'm wondering, as you talk about all of these different technologies becoming larger and larger and really encroaching upon our life, how can we find the heart within the technology? And also if you were to have a message to any technology companies or founders out there right now, what would you want to say to them?
Let me answer that one first, and then remind me what the first part of the question was.
Totally.
As far as reminding leaders, I think obviously AI is such a massive theme right now. And I come back to that the heart, its function in the human system, there's many aspects to it, of course, but part of its function is to keep everything together. I mean, if we look at the Ayurvedic system, the Hindu system of chakras. The heart's in the center, 3 above, 3 below. It's viewed in many cultures as this is the source of where life comes in. And so if we're not kind of living from our heart, we're not in touch with our own source, or the source of the divine, however you may view it. So to not ask the heart for guidance around the AI we're designing, and the lack of guardrails for the AI that we're designing, and the fact that it can hallucinate like crazy, or the fact that we are going into massive energy deficit if we're not careful in this country, thanks to the data centers that are having to be built to manage this AI. Well, get your freaking heart involved in the thinking about all this. We're going to kill the planet in the name of outsourcing a lot of our creative thinking to computers? Let's think holistically. The heart its function is to take care of the entire system. It's not only thinking about itself. It's not only thinking, how can I come out? No, its whole purpose is to feed and nurture the entire body. And that's obviously on the circulatory level, and the rhythmic level, and the magnetic level, and electrical level. But emotionally, spiritually, if we're not in touch with the values of our heart, we are not nourished. What COVID showed us, among many things, was the lack of social connection was the hardest part. The sense of isolation, the sense of hopelessness, and the lack of, that's our heart. Our heart was feeling, what happened? I can't see her anymore. 3 years I didn't see my daughter. I'd never gone more than 4 months without seeing her. 3 years, thanks to COVID. I'm not blaming COVID. It was the life conditions. We made the choice, but my point is the heart. So I think leaders of any kind of tech company, not just picking on AI, if we're not considering the human factors, the human feelings, the impact. You mentioned wearables, and wearables are awesome if you know how to manage your own reaction to the data that you're seeing every morning. So the wearables that we're working on now, not HeartMath directly, but are educating people about what to do with the information from the standpoint of their heart. How do I, in a balanced, mature way, learn from this data that for the 10th consecutive night, I'm not sleeping well? A lot of people get depressed by that fact. Great. Now I'm measuring the fact that I can't sleep. Well, I already knew that. And now I'm feeling worse because my number's low every single day. So these are real human issues that affect how we think, how we decide. So if we're not keeping that in mind with any kind of tech we're creating, what good is it? And I think that oftentimes it's as simple as asking ourselves, what extra care could we be putting into this thing that we're designing? For example, I think about how in the world of upgrades, of updates of software, I don't remember ever getting informed, hey, here's a quick little readout of the main highlights of what's changed in the app that we changed for you while you were asleep. You didn't choose to upgrade. It's now different. Here's a quick little list. That would be caring. Nobody thinks to do that. So every user, every app in the world wakes up to a new version. Well, what did they do here? How come this is different? How come, what's going on? And to find out what's going on, there's no simple way to do that. That bit of care, technology companies that would figure out, that does still matter to people. When a company ever shows that level of care, that extra attention to detail, and says, you might get confused by this. Here's a quick little rundown of here's what's going on. I'm not saying nobody does that, but a lot of people right now are nodding in agreement to what I'm saying. It's like the annoyance of, why don't they just do, it could be 30 seconds. Here's a quick, because normally a lot of times you don't know it's been updated. It's just updating in the background. And maybe it's not a big deal. But my point is to be thinking about, where can we put extra care for the consumer, and not just be like, let them figure it out on their own. We didn't have to.
I love that you're bringing this up, because I actually just wrote an article on this around the Cracker Barrel explosion when they changed their logo. And it turned out that they didn't really warn their customers or tell the story of why this change was happening. And it was a huge cultural explosion because people felt left in the dark. They felt like they didn't matter and that progress was erasing them. And so I think pointing to this care, both in the progress that we're making and also the hand-holding of getting more buy-in. And I think that's one thing that I'm really passionate about, is the difference between a business and a movement. Is a business has consumers and is bottom line profit, where a movement is you are co-creating with your community. And if tech or any other organization really had that at the center of what they were building, then I think there would be a lot more care and a lot more trust within consumers who are actually part of their community.
Exactly. And I think when you think of tech that created movements in a sense, I mean, of course, Apple, how can you not think about a lot of their marketing? They were trying to be like, we are different. We're the good guys. Their famous 1984 ad. I mean, there were a lot of things in how they marketed, but also I will always be grateful to Apple about the incredible care they put into every thing about every product.
That was Steve Jobs.
But they haven't stopped. And then that extends to the stores. I mean, the Apple stores are unique experiences. I don't know any stores in the world that are consistently anywhere in the world you go to an Apple store. They're young and they're bright and they're really helpful. And they usually go beyond what you expected. Like, wow, thank you. Awesome. I mean, not every single one, but my point is, I think for a lot of people, you felt like even now when they're a $1 trillion plus valuation and they're not very innovative anymore, actually. Haven't been innovative in a long time, but there's still a lot of loyalty because they at least care in places that count, where you feel as a customer befuddled by something and you come in and they help you do stuff that maybe you'd even ask. I've had that experience so many times. So I feel like I'll always be proud of Apple, even though there's tons of things they do that I'm actually not proud of, but they've cared in a supreme level.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's part of whether it's building a movement where profit isn't the motive, not money profit, but to build a movement, you need energy profit. You got to be getting back more than you're putting out, right? I hadn't thought of that distinction before, actually, till I just said that. But I think that's a good way to think of it, because obviously in business, yes, there's a financial profit you're looking for. And the smart ones, like the Apples of the world and many others, figure out to really get the profit, you got to be caring at every one of those points, because I wouldn't even think of not having an iPhone. I would never even vaguely consider, partly because my iPhone and my Mac, I wouldn't consider having another computer because I had them for 20 years, didn't like them. These are pretty well connected, not perfect, but pretty well connected. So I'm hooked in. Why would I leave? Yeah, and the quality is good enough and often excellent. They're very smart. So yes, it's in the name of profit, but they're doing all these things to make people feel connected to that. But back to creating a movement, not just a business that kind of acts like a movement in a sense. But I think this energy profit, you're still after a profit. You have to be getting more back in terms of growth, enthusiasm, sense of this mission is working. We're making the impact we're wanting to make. That there's a certain self-renewing energy within the movement. That's the profit, I suppose. The self-renewing energy, not just the founder energy that the founders or whoever was involved in creating it, that puts a lot of the energy in to make the movement happen. But then at a certain point when it becomes a self-renewing energy, which I think you see in certain motivational speakers who, those people that just couldn't. There was some big event in Germany, Tony Robbins, and I don't know how many tens of thousands of people. I saw a lot of clips on Instagram. I'm in Cologne, Germany, or wherever it was. And all those people that they have to be there. They got to go to where the movement's happening, or the Joe.
Have you been to a Tony Robbins?
I have not.
I was never a Tony Robbins fan, and then somehow he came into my orbit, and I got to tell you, I have just been blown away. Actually, a huge reason why I stepped into developing this organization, Movement Maker, was going to a bunch of Tony Robbins events. And what's amazing about him, just talking about being so tapped in around energy, is he has this ability. For 4 days, it was an online Zoom. Just like this. And he had us getting up at 5 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night on Zoom, and you were energized the entire time. And I know the reason why he gets you so energized is he keeps getting you into your body and he keeps getting you into your heart. And so you are so emotionally invested. 1 minute you're just crying from all of his incredible inspirational stories. And then the next moment you're up and you're moving and you're dancing, right? And it's such a great example of how important it is to move from the head into the heart and into the body, because that's actually where that true resonance and that true presence lies.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's a great way you described it. I actually did go to one event 30 years ago maybe, but it was like an evening, not a whole thing like he does now. And there was that. I can relate to what you said about how his use of stories and the energy of being in your body. I think that's what you've just identified really is key. I'm got into Joe Dispenza. I think we may have talked about. He's got a similar vibe. He's more of a scientist, so he's kind of comes back to the science more. But likewise, he's getting people up and dancing, and it's very much about you going deep into meditation, deep into the heart. But then you're getting up and playing and having a great time, and getting up at 4 a.m. to do 4-hour meditations, and like, how did the time go? That's crazy. It can't be 8 o'clock yet.
I want to pause for a quick moment. If what we're talking about today resonates with you, you'll want to check out the Movement Maker Incubator, my 6-month intensive where I guide sacred rebels and change makers to birth their own movements using ancient wisdom and modern strategy. You can join the waitlist and learn more about this sacred rite of passage for change makers at globalmovementmaker.com/incubator. I want to bring it back to your experience at HeartMath and bringing heart into a business and building a movement. You were one of the co-founders of HeartMath. And so can you share some of your biggest learnings?
Well, some of what you said were kind of what we did in a minuscule way. I mean, HeartMath has this beautiful property in the Santa Cruz Mountains of the Bay Area. And several hundred acres of raw land, plus the land where there are buildings and where you can stay, and research center and facilities, shed and seminar room and dining hall and all this stuff. But so number one, it was built on this property that had incredible hiking trails. And so people were encouraged, not necessarily organized, but encouraged to go up the hill. Like there was a serious climb to a reservoir at the top. Do that before breakfast if you want. Come back down. We'll see you at breakfast. We had a band. HeartMath had a band of its.
I never heard that.
We were first forming. There was a couple groups that kind of came together as the core team. And we discovered that 6 of us all had professional careers either on Broadway or in rock bands.
Wow, that's incredible.
And so 2 of us had been on Broadway. A couple were like drummers and lead guitar and seriously good bands. And we thought, okay, that's too random. We obviously need to have a band. HeartMath needs to have a band. We were like, damn. And some of the guys still had all the equipment, like lights and fog machine and all this kind of stuff. So we had a whole band set up in the kind of dining room of HeartMath, and people would walk in there and it'd be all dark and kind of black in the back. They couldn't quite tell what was there. But then in the daytime, is there a band? Then maybe Saturday night, of the weekend, the band would play and we'd do 1 or sometimes 2 sets. It was all cover song. We didn't have time. We were all building it. We didn't have time to create music. We were doing covers because in the band were people that had been playing in bands for years and had a whole repertoire of songs they knew, and then we would learn them. And it was quite an eclectic bunch of things, from Marvin Gaye, Smokey Robinson, The Grateful Dead, Linda Ronstadt. I mean, just all kinds of stuff that were, oh, this song, let's get up and dance, honey. But then the audience was like totally delighted by this, because they would be, wait a minute, who's that lead singer? She's cute. She's the head of PR. Who's the lead guitarist? He's the sous chef. What? The keyboard player, head of the government division.
Wow.
Drummer, executive VP of strategy, and the guy playing bongos and conga, he's the CEO. That was me. Like, what? Do you like have auditions to get to work at HeartMath? We'd say, well, kind of. You have to at least be able to sway in rhythm with the band. You don't have to be up on stage. You have to
at least know how to do the tambourine, right?
Exactly. So that was a very fun part of the experience for people, because here we were, the staff, having fun, having a good time, blending heart with work. We were kind of at work in a sense, but it was all super fun that we got to do this. And the audience who were attending the weekend program were like, this is so fun. And after a while, the band became part of the attraction to even come to HeartMath. It's like, is the band going to play tonight?
Amazing.
We said, well, maybe not tonight, but tomorrow night, Sunday night, I'm going to play again on Sunday night. Well, we'll see. We can keep it open. It was a fun. There was delight, surprise going on. So that was a lot of an original mystique of HeartMath. You came to this property way up in the hills, magical place. You'd get out of the car and say, whoa, I feel relaxed already. because it was quite tucked away. I mean, it was quite remote. And so the natural beauty, the redwood trees, the meadow, and you could get up high enough, you could literally see 50 miles across the Monterey Bay down to Big Sur if it was a clear enough day. So, like, wow. And you're literally not even an hour from Silicon Valley, downtown Silicon Valley. So it didn't take you hours and hours and hours to get there. So there was a mystique that we kind of created by the natural beauty of the property, how we built the property so you could just go off and hike on your own if you wanted. And then there were all this little care that we were doing the catering. We had our own in-house catering. So the people making the food were part of the team. So people would come to these programs and feel like they were kind of bathed in love. The entertainers worked at HeartMath. The cooks worked at HeartMath. The wait people worked at they were all part of the team. And so and you can tell it's fun for me to even remember those days. It was the first decade of HeartMath when all that was going on. And, but it was a fun part of kind of building a sense of fun about HeartMath, because people would go away learning new concepts that were in some cases uncomfortable, and learning science that was challenging a lot of their beliefs. So this was not just a big party, like with Tony and Joe, and those guys are saying things that challenge our beliefs, our self-limitations and all that. Same was true with HeartMath. So we were trying to create an environment of so much care, but also honoring people's need to rest. Sometimes people would get there having worked very long weeks or years. Then they've flown to get across country. Then they arrive in this beautiful, serene, quiet, and they just want to go to sleep. They just want to go to bed. We're like, yeah, I feel you. But if you need some extra rest, go for it. Go for it, honey. Go for it. We're here to help you learn how to take care of yourself more. There was this, and we were really, really serious in a fun way about being caring, because we realized, number one, we all wanted that. That's why we all were in HeartMath, was we all believed in the importance of care and the power of care. But we also realized, okay, we're a freaking nonprofit about it. This is our raison d'etre, is care and the heart. So everyone will look at us through that lens. Are these guys actually walking their talk, or is it just the latest California thing?
Isn't that true? I wish I didn't have this experience, but I have worked for so many spiritual organizations and nonprofit organizations that don't walk their talk and are more of co-ops. They are trying to, on the surface, appear to be very well-intentioned and spiritual, but on the back end, it is more about profit. It is more about extraction. So I think, unfortunately, it's been rare that I've seen organizations walking their talk. And I think that that's another big reason why I've started Movement Maker, because I want more integrity and more ethics held in the field, and also more supervision and mentorship as well. People like you who have really walked their talk and built amazing movements to be able to come in and mentor new movement makers and new change makers from the things that you've learned.
Thank you. I agree totally. And I guess another point that came to mind as you were talking just then, Mackenzie, is because it kind of goes back to the earlier question you asked me about what would I say to leaders about the importance of the heart and intelligence.
Yeah, please.
I can't overstate this need for care. I feel like I keep noticing in how we even communicate with one another now, that because everything is done by text, and that's the default all the time now. And so many people refuse to have, I don't do calls. Like, people will literally say that I don't do calls, and I don't do anything synchronously. I've heard people say I only communicate asynchronously.
Wow.
Okay. And so we're used to fragmented communication. We're used to, maybe we're still wanting to communicate more fully, so sending a paragraph of a comment, and then the response we get back is yes. When in fact there were 3 or 4 different questions asked in the thing, and all because the attention span of a gnat brain that was just reading that text only saw the last question because they just scanned through.
Right.
So the lack of care and communication to me is getting really worrisome, because and I don't just mean about texting, but it's just like the lack of thinking through the impact. Like we talked about the apps, why are we not thinking of these things? Why are we not thinking of that extra bit of care? Because it seems like extra work, and we want to not have to do the work. That's why we love AI. But I appreciate saving time from work. However, if we're not replacing that with extra care, what's the value? Now we're reading hollow things. It's getting more and more obvious. I'll ask people sometimes, are you using AI to respond to me? And one person said, caught me. I thought, I don't need to be connected to that person. They're trying to sound smart in response to my message. It's coming off as AI. This one person forgot that in the thing she had copied and pasted included the message from the AI saying, I think he will really respond well to the points.
Oh, no.
And I said, and I realized I was kind of paying attention to other people and realizing there's a lot of people using AI as their text now. So they're not even taking the time to respond because they tell themselves, I don't have time. So I'll just let AI do the responding. So there's no actual connection going on.
I think what you're pointing to is really important because there's two things here. One is the need to slow down. And then also the need for more vulnerability. And while AI is obviously an incredibly powerful tool, and with everything, the more power it has, the more dark, the more light, right? But as a society, we are just speeding up more, speeding up more, speeding up more. And with this, we're wondering why the collapse of society is happening when we're all burnt out, overwhelmed, and as you said, can barely even respond to a text. Now we have this AI where it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to actually think so much of the response anymore. I'll just send this perfect text, but it's then creating this perfection layer and not allowing for any typos or mistakes. And it really makes that disconnection and doesn't have much vulnerability anymore. And it takes out the heart.
Exactly. All of the above. Back to a movement. Good luck with that. If all that's happening, it's not going to be a movement for long. Because I think I'm not the only one noticing that there's more and more people responding using AI. Of course, that's happening. I'm not the only one noticing that people are sending photos, and I'm thinking, like, you really think I can't tell that's an AI?
Right.
Really? You think we've all lost all discernment now and we don't see AI? I mean, maybe I'm a little more discerning than some people. I'm a photographer. I've been paying attention to imagery most of my life from being in show business and video and all this stuff. Sure, maybe I'm a little more tough about it than others, but no. We can tell. We can tell. So we're actually creating more disconnection by some of these choices, thinking it's in the name of, well, it's just saving me time. Isn't that awesome? But not at the expense of connection. No, I'm sorry.
Right.
No. So it's not going to work for a movement, I guess, is the real point either. I'm not saying you don't ever use AI. That's not at all my message. I'm using it on a regular basis. But you use it selectively. You don't use it to replace the human care. And you better be thinking, if I'm going to use AI, what's that extra energy for? It better be for care if you're a movement maker.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Mic drop. Could not agree more. In terms of movement making, what other elements do you think make a movement?
Well, as you said that, I was thinking back to my youth because this is 60s, so it was an era of a lot of movements. I mean, there was all the students against the war and various factions. SDS, even the name of SDS, but that was a more radical version. They were protesting against the Vietnam War, but it would tend to get a little more violent.
It also very much feels like the 60s are happening right now, right?
Yes. So I think a lot of it needs to be a compelling human value that you're supporting. I mean, at 14, I was marching against the war in Vietnam in Washington, D.C. with 250,000 other people. And it was a feeling of, we have to care for these people that are dying. We are killing innocent people. This is not okay. So there was a compelling feeling like we have got to en masse now get out and do what's right. So it was ultimately a noble cause. We needed to stop the insanity of what was going on in the name of humanity needs to flourish. So there may be something that the movement is trying to stop, but to not get into, I think this is where some of the peace movements of my generation lost their way, was they became so angry and anti everything. The spirit of the founders of peace movements, with people like Gandhi and Jesus and Martin Luther King, were all about love, and they were all about, so they never varied. Mm-hmm. The ones who couldn't hold that necessarily later on became too much about I've got a better peace movement than you do. It's the competitive model. Like, no, that should never be a thought. So I think that there has to be both. Whatever is the reason for the creation of the movement may be to stop something horrific, a genocide. But to do that also with whatever is the highest human value, that is what's uniting us. We have to unite in the care for what's happening, because that bad thing is still occurring. The care for where we want humanity to go for. I mean, movements certainly start not for any noble human value. We see that all the time too, unfortunately. But the movements, to me, that are going to sustain and make a difference in the world have to have as their ultimate aim a noble cause that we never forget, even in the name of stopping whatever atrocity or horrible thing is going on. So that's a balance to find, because in the midst of a shocking world, how can you scream loud enough when you feel like you're completely powerless? But if we don't try to hold true to the new world we want to see, the new humanity we want to have, and try to operate as much as we can from that, then we'll be only shouting and screaming. And so I think there's a place for both. I'm not saying we shouldn't speak out strongly. I do. And at the same time, it's got to be coming from a constant reminder. This is about love. This is about we're one humanity. What are the noble values that my movement are trying to express?
When I look at, the MAGA movement, I see a lot of people there with a lot of concern for the United States and the, their freedom. And it can feel like it's coming from their passion, coming from their heart, but I experience it coming from fear. And so I'm wondering, what are your thoughts around the current political movement that we're seeing? Man,
that opened the door. Well,
it sure opened a door, Bruce. I'm going there.
Well, boy, where to even begin? I think you just made a good point about MAGA, because I think there are people that genuinely, from their perspective, love a certain version of America they think that they're losing.
Yes.
I don't think that ever existed, or if it did, it was at the expense of anybody who was not white. So this romantic view of the America that once was, and so we need to get back to that wonderful time. It was not a wonderful time. There wasn't such a place. Who was being marginalized then? Who didn't even have the right to vote then? Who was being racially profiled then? Who was being lynched then? When was this halcyon time that we want to think back to? But I've always also in my own spiritual growth tried to have compassion and understanding for where people have learned whatever they've learned in their life. Somebody only raised in a Christian nationalist family in red state where and it was still idolizing the Civil War and all that. When that was your total belief system and historical context, I could totally understand why you would love that and want to protect that. And you would have to remain completely closed to any other possibilities, because many people, of course, escape that and realize this is not humane. This is not about people. This is about a small group of people that want to protect themselves and be free of everybody else. It's not about humanity or any sense of oneness. So I don't know. I guess the one kind of meta comment I would make is I think right now there's a big dichotomy between spiritual dichotomy. Dichotomy is not even the right word, but division between those who want to see the humanity as a whole, want to care for each other as a whole, and that being like we're one planet, we're going to live or die together, versus those who refuse to accept that and want to protect themselves at all costs. And it's about their freedom and about their liberty and their ability to do whatever the heck they want to anybody they want, and without any consequence. And that could sound like it's a Democrat, Republican or something. Not at all. To me, it was never about that. What we're going through now was never about, yes, politically there's those factors going on, but it's about a fundamental, are we going to be self-centered and only interested in profit and short-term gain that ignores the reality of a climate, of a planet, of people who are being suppressed? Or are we going to say, we are in this together? All the spiritual traditions have said this. The Bible that you guys love to quote says this too. If you read the New Testament every so often, the Beatitudes every so often, it's all about treating each other like brothers and love and compassion. And so to me, the choice is, are we really serious about survival as a whole and supporting one another as species and all the species, not just humans? Or are we going to say, no, it's all about individual freedom, it's all about sovereignty, and that's what counts? And I think that's a lot of the crossroads and the choice that people are under. And that's day to day, that's a challenge. Because as much as it's pretty clear which side I'm on, day to day, it's still challenging when you think about, the marshalization of our country right now. I feel pretty safe in Marin County. I'll be in LA for several weeks. It's not so safe down in LA. Where I'll be, probably pretty safe, but I could be 3 miles away, not safe at all. The ICE raids are going on all the time. People being just ripped off the street for no actual reason and nothing credible, no due process, no justification. And that's happening. Part of me was like, well, at least that's not happening to me. They're not targeting me. I'm kind of low on their list, theoretically. Oh, except I posted very openly for years. So I am on their list. So then it comes back to personal safety. So we're all going through this. I'm not trying to make it sound like I've got it all down and I don't go through some of the same fears about my own viability or sanctity in the work that I'm still here to do. I'm not retired. I'm not planning to retire. I'm not planning to go quietly into the night. I'm planning to go strongly into the night.
I think that this is a great pivot as we're winding down the podcast to talk about your vibrato method, because as these are challenging times, we need the practices to be able to hold this heaviness and this complexity. And so do you want to tell people a little bit about the vibrato method, how they can find you, and maybe share just a little practice that is one of your favorites?
There is one that I will share. Well, let me give you the quick overview of what I'm doing with vibrato. It's a musical term, but I'll save that for later. Basically, as somebody who has been, thanks to all the years with HeartMath, and even before HeartMath, really curious and exploring what happens in our bodies under stress. When HeartMath was starting in 1991-92, the World Health Organization in 92 announced that stress had become a global epidemic. That was before we even knew the word internet, digital devices, let alone social media.
That's insane.
Years ago, they were already recognizing it's an epidemic. People are dying of stress as we speak. 33 years ago. Now look at what we're doing. Our bodies are not equipped to handle this. And yes, it's extreme in America. It's absolutely the most extreme in my lifetime because of the constant threats to our safety and sense of humanity. But I feel like even if you weren't in this country, wherever you are, you may be dealing with something similar in your own country, or you've got just the sheer enormity of life. You're aging. You've got health issues you didn't used to have. You got financial pressures suddenly you didn't anticipate thanks to tariffs or thanks to whatever. And so to me, the pressures on us as humans are greater than ever, let alone the actual energetic inputs on us, whether that's EMF, whether that's microwave, whether that's all the things in our environment that can be toxic to us. We're maxed out, a lot of us. Like, I can't handle anymore. I mean, I can't tell you how many of my friends, social seekers themselves for 30, 40, 50 years, kind of like, got to get off my phone completely. Friends of mine that have been off social media for years, I cannot do any of that stuff. Friends of mine will not listen to the news at all, try to stay completely devoid of it. I respect that. I can't do that. I have to stay aware. But I say to them, you can't remove yourself from the energetic reality of what's going on to humanity. The level of frustration and fear and anxiety is our fields. And that's not woo-woo to say that. That's verifiable scientific information. We create fields. The heart, the brain create fields. Those fields are filled with the emotional information of what we're going through. We're walking around spreading how we feel, whether we think we are or not. Whether we can tune into another person's exact field or not isn't the point. We're 8 billion of us going through it. And so to me, vibrato was born with that recognition that we're going through more than ever. And every day we need to be offloading. We need to be releasing. And I'm not the first one that said this, but I just had a kind of a clever way to do it. And I call it vibrato because vibrato in the musical context, it's a musical term, like a voice. A singing voice, that's a tone, that's vibrato. You hear that little wave going on. So vibrato literally means adding a wave to make a tone more rich, more beautiful. So I've had these feelings that as somebody who's very artistic and feel a lot, especially after I went through all the health stuff I went through. I feel more than ever. And a lot of the time I thank God for the fact that I can be so awed by the flower right now. I'm thankful to God. On the other hand, the downside is more intense in my life, meaning I can feel the suffering so deeply. It's like so painfully. So, oh, no. And so I know for me, I have to release more often because there's more things that will build up. So Vibrato, I got this insight on the beach one day when the Category 5 hurricane was not too far away. A month before the U.S. presidential election, I had kidney stones and a UTI. I was in agony in my body. I was worried about the election, and there was a Category 5 hurricane. Other than that,
Bruce,
it wasn't coming to me. I had evacuated. It was still rough and turbulent where I was. I walked out to the beach, and I got a message from the ocean right away. Generate waves, don't just feel waves. I thought, wow, I feel waves so much. I feel the wave of fear. And 5 million of us had evacuated from that hurricane. That's a reality. A field of fear is real. And that message carried me as I walked along the beach. And I thought, I've got to share. I've been into waves for so long now. HeartMath is all about the waves of the heart. I'm a dancer. I love the swimming in an ocean because of the waves. Somehow waves need to help us right now and not be taken under by waves all the time. Waves of fear, waves of angst, waves of shock, whatever it may be. So I created this thing. I named it Vibrato, meaning to add a wave to make it more beautiful, as a series of techniques to help us in these times. And the one I want to share with you now is called the wave of relief. The wave of relief. And it's based on the idea of a sigh of relief. And the sigh of relief, you can think of it as like you finish a tough task and you go, thank God I got that finished. Athletes do it right before they are about to do a race or about to hit the serve or about to do the gymnastic routine. They kind of release and then they go. And so there's this instinctual, and our body, it turns out, has a mechanism to kind of remind us to let go. And that mechanism ideally would happen about every 5 minutes. We don't notice it generally. We just keep on going. And then you look at your watch, I need to stop. Well, the mechanism of that's a sigh of relief. I learned about it thanks to COVID and thanks to cancer. That the ability to let go is incredibly healing. I'll skip the stories for now, but the 2 times in my life where the recognition of how much I was holding on, in one case in fear of COVID, in another case fear that I wasn't over the cancer, how much I was holding on needed to be released or I wouldn't heal. So that informed me as I was walking on the beach, dealing with the Category 5, the UTI, the kidney stone, and I'm thinking, okay, I know enough. I know a lot about all this stuff. Actually, I could probably call myself a master if I needed to, but I won't. But I'll get this course out. I'm going to call it Vibrato because it sounds kind of cool. And it sounds kind of like an X-Men character. I am Vibrato. I will harmonize you.
I love that.
Against your will. So Vibrato is a technique, but the wave of relief is based around this idea of the sigh of relief. But I've used imagery of the ocean. So let me explain it first, and then I'll walk us through. So the idea is when you breathe in, you're taking a deeper breath than normal. Imagine you were like standing on a beach. And the special feeling that I like to picture for people is that vacation that you were planning to take for months to the beach, the tropical place, and you've been anticipating, and finally you make the trip, and finally you get your bags out of the van, and you go into the room, you put them down, change the bathing suit, you walk out on the beach. We made it. That feeling, and you're feeling the air, you're feeling the warmth, you're hearing the waves, and so when you're breathing in that feeling, and then when you get to the top of the breath, you're just releasing. You're not pushing it out. You're not going, you're just letting go, which a sigh of relief is literally just, thank God our team won.
Yep.
Doing a special breath, you're just letting go of all of that was worried. So the wave of relief is breathing in this warm, wonderful energy of the waves and the sea, just letting go. But with the letting go, I'm saying, and we think of waves as always coming in, but obviously they don't, or we would all be underwater. So they go out with equal intensity. So you use that in your favor. So as you go, you're sending that to the sea, which is going to take that out to sea. So the imagery is the waves of the sea on a beautiful day. It's perfect for whatever feels right to you. That could be spring, I don't care, or it could be warm and hot. Whatever feels right to you. So let's do it now.
I would love it.
Take 30 seconds. So take a nice deep breath in through the heart of this warm, beautiful energy, deeper than normal. And then when you get to the top, just let it go. Drop in it like a box of rocks. And as you let it go, let's do it a few times. You can kind of do it on your own, but breathe in nice and deep, this feeling of the wave from the ocean, nice and warm and beautiful. And then just let go any tension inside you and let it go out to sea, and the wave carries it out. So keep doing that. So the in-breath is about twice the length of a normal in-breath. Nice and deep, that warm energy of the waves. And then it's just dropping it. And then that energy that you don't need is being pulled out to sea. So the sea is helping you. Let nature help you. It's here to help us. And you can just keep doing that. And what we notice is that when you first try to release, a lot of us hold a lot of tension in the belly. Others, it's chest, back, wherever. The tension is still there. And you don't just do one and like, wow, magic, amazing. That guy, wow, does he know? No, it takes several. Might take 10 or 15, because you could have been hanging on really hard in there with some angst or fear. But as you truly just release, not force it out or ride it out, just the phrase is drop it like a box of rocks. You're just dropping and it just drops. You're not having to do much work. What you're having to do is truly release. Mm-hmm. And that's harder than it sounds.
It is harder than it sounds.
When you do it, you realize, oh yeah, I'm still holding on a little bit. But as you keep doing it, you start to realize, wow, that knot that I've carried for all week, wow, I haven't felt this relaxed since Saturday morning or whatever. So that's the wave of relief. And I do it regularly through the day as the needs occur. A lot of times in the morning, a lot of times it's 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and I've awakened and something's on my mind, and I realize this is why I created this, was for this time.
Yep.
I need to release this now so I can get back to deep sleep. If I don't, I'm only half deep sleep. And then my body's not in the true restoration mode. I'm not in the real mode.
Well, thank you so much for that practical tool that I hope I will be using this week. I hope our listeners will be using this week as well. And I love that you're pointing to nature and how we can really be inspired by nature and learn from nature within our own wellness. And you're reminding us with this wave of relief to slow down, to feel into how we're feeling throughout the day. Take that moment to release, because we're holding a lot, especially right now. So thank you so much, Bruce, for being on the podcast. It was such a pleasure. And is there any website, URL, anywhere that people can find your work?
Thank you. Website is brucecryer.com. Instagram is Bruce_Cryer. Facebook, Bruce Cryer 51, I think. I've got a new thing starting soon. I'm a photographer, and brucecryer.art is coming soon. A gallery and online store of my nature photography.
Very exciting. That's amazing. And also, can you please pitch your music as well? Bruce is an incredible...
Thank you. Yeah. Well, on iTunes, Spotify, and other music platforms, I have an album of original songs called Renaissance Human. It's under my name, Bruce Cryer. Renaissance Human is the name of the album.
What is the song that you sang the first time that we met? What's the name of that?
Yeah, I'm Me.
I have to tell you that I include that song within the Movement Maker Incubator. I just was so moved from it. So people that are a part of Movement Maker Incubator, this is the man behind the music, the legend behind the music. Amazing.
How fun. How nice to know that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Bruce, for being on. Really, really appreciate you sharing all of your years of wisdom and growing movements and your attunement to the heart and to the body. It's needed now more than ever. Thank you for listening to The Call to Rise. If today's conversation stirred something in you, subscribe and share it with a fellow movement maker. And join our community at globalmovementmaker.com. Till next time, keep leading with courage, keep weaving ancient wisdom with modern strategy, and always remember to answer the call.